What's up, guys? It is the sports nerd Bradley Walker, and welcome to the Walker Report. As you can see behind me, guys, I don't have my green screen. I'm at my friend's house. And sooner or later, after next week, this will probably kind of be what the setup will be. Probably get my green screen back. But for the time being, if you see me turn around, my friend's dog is lovely. She's back here. So if you hear anything in the background, it's my friend's dog. Anyway, guys, welcome to the Walker Report. Guys, we have a great show this evening. I have my friend Dustin from Twitter. He's on here tonight. I'll have Mikey joining me from LinkedIn. Both of them are fantasy football guys, so be talking a lot of football this evening. We guys remember, we are part of NGSC Sports, guys. Remember the network. It's ngscsports.com for all your current sports content, and that's where your boy writes articles. So head over there and type it in. The last article I wrote, I actually combine sports and politics, something I don't like to do. But go over there and read it. It's about the Live PGA merger. Go over there and take a look at the article. We are part of Snowman Multimedia Sports, the Game Winner Sports Network, Mancini Media, and Sport Alliance of America Incorporated. We have three sponsors on the show, guys. We have first, creatingzenspaces.com. It is the local choice in St. Petersburg, Florida for house cleaning, organization, decluttering, and pet sitting. It's about finding the peace within you and adding comfort to your life. And guys, remember, Zen Spaces starts with you. Be kind to yourself and one another. We are also sponsored by Garrett's Carrots. Illuminate your inner self. Shatter the trendy norms and open up your world to a newfound level of confidence and admiration. Garrett's Carrots, designer jewelry and luxury accessories at garrettscarrots.com. We are also sponsored by funwags.com. Born from a near tragedy when the Funwags mascots had a bad reaction from a store-brand treat. Fuel to succeed with treats made from 3 to 5 ingredients you can pronounce. The Funwags mascots invite you to try Funwags at funwags.com because our fur babies deserve the best. Head over to funwags.com and check out the treats. Guys, I also have a friend on Facebook running a weight loss summer challenge. My man Ryan. Win $500 and lose 10 plus pounds in 21 days in the Summer Transformation Challenge. That's what these two clients did in my last challenge. Both lost over 10 pounds and won $500. Things you'll get from the challenge is learn how to lose weight without a fad diet, grocery shopping list, 15-minute home workout boost metabolism, learn how to keep the weight off, improve gut health, optimize hormones, weekly accountability calls, access to all my guides and cheat sheets, and regain your energy and confidence. Head over there and talk to my man Ryan. He will get you all set up for that. Well, guys, I think I have everybody. Yes, everybody is in here. Let me bring on my four co-hosts real quick first, and I'll bring on my three co-hosts, and I'll bring on my two guests as well. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening. How's it going, guys?
All right.
Hot.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, same here too.
Yeah, it's the same here.
101 degrees here at 7:05 p.m.
Let me ask you guys a question. Did everybody receive their business cards?
No.
Yes.
Lewis, you haven't received yours yet?
No.
Well, that's interesting because Adam and Gerald did. Okay. I'll have to check my mailbox and make sure that they didn't get sent back to me. Okay. But okay, I just wanted to check and make sure, and
yeah, thanks
everybody
for
else.
Yeah, I was wondering that myself.
Okay. All right. Well, let me bring on the two guests we have this evening, guys. Dustin is from Twitter, and Mikey is from LinkedIn. Welcome in, gentlemen.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Let me bring Mikey on.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
How's it going this evening?
How's everybody doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
Awesome, man. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. I know Dustin he's a fantasy guy from Twitter, and Mikey is from LinkedIn. I'll be honest with you. I think I've had more guests from LinkedIn than any other social media platform.
Really?
That too.
I honestly. So
I just heard that fantasy football is getting big on LinkedIn for some reason, and I guess I need to check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Too bad I'm lousy at fantasy football though. You know I am.
And you know what? I don't even play fantasy football, so I'm going to take notes, guys, because my current roommate has 2 teams, so I'm taking notes tonight down for him to pass it on to him when he makes his draft in August.
I played fantasy football 2 years, and in both those years, I got my rear end whooped.
Well, these 2 gentlemen will help us make sure that you don't get your butt whooped. How about that?
Right.
Well, I guess we can get into it, guys. Where do you got Mikey and Dustin? Where do you guys want to start? Do you want to go by division? Do you want to go by conference? How do you guys want to do it?
It's your show, man. I'm just hopping on. I'm happy to go wherever you want to go. Dustin, I don't know if you have any
yeah, I mean, I think if we're going to do a general overview, let's go division by division and kind of maybe talk about some of the sleepers and busts for each division and each team. Does that work?
That's fine with me. That's fine with me. I guess, well, let's see. I got somebody in Texas, somebody in New Jersey, somebody in Tennessee. Where are you 2 guys at? I'm in Florida. So where are you 2?
I'm in Austin, so I'm a Cowboy fan.
Yeah, yep.
Fascinating. I literally just 36 minutes ago posted my Dallas Cowboys team preview with every player on the Dallas Cowboys. So that's interesting.
I like it.
I don't know if you guys can see the Packer helmet back there, but I was born and raised in Wisconsin, about Milwaukee. So I'm a big fan of all things Wisconsin: Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks, beer, cheese, you name it. If it's Wisconsin,
of course.
Okay, Mickey, I didn't get a chance to see it, but how do you think the Cowboys are going to do this year?
Yeah.
I think they're going to be fine from a football perspective. I think they are going to be frustrating from a fantasy football perspective after they got rid of Kellen Moore and brought in Brian Schottenheimer, who somehow keeps getting a job as an offensive coordinator after 12 years of mediocrity at best. But it's going to be frustrating for the passing game, at least from a fantasy football standpoint. But Tony Pollard should get all the work he can handle. And the question there, of course, is going to be the durability and whether or not he can hold up for a full season. But I think Dallas, if you're a fan of the Dallas Cowboys, I think they're going to be fine from a fandom perspective. They're projected to make the playoffs, and they absolutely should. So I think they'll be fine if you're a Cowboys fan.
Yeah,
what about for the Jets?
Let me finish with the Cowboys. I completely agree. I think the Cowboys will be good for football. They'll have a decent record. They'll probably finish with 12 wins, 13 wins, but they're going to be probably a wild card team just because of the Eagles in that division. I'm still a believer in Dak Prescott. I think he can be all right. I think adding Brandon Cooks helps with the loss of Dalton Schultz, but definitely, is a step up from Michael Gallup and the other guys they had as their wide receiver 2s last year. They could still bring in another running back. It sounds like Zeke is out of the question, but Leonard Fournette's still out there. Kareem Hunt, if you believe in him, even Dalvin Cook could be out there. So they could bring in someone to still kind of help compete. I really like Malik Davis, their backup. I think he's a talented player, so he could get some snaps. So I think they'll be good, but I agree with you, Mikey, that I think fantasy might be a little bit frustrating. It really comes down to Dak Prescott, if he can keep the interceptions under 10, which is what he said. He said he wouldn't have 10 interceptions this year. So we'll see how that goes. I am a Bills fan, if you couldn't tell. I was actually born outside Philadelphia. My mom's family is all from Buffalo. I actually live in Madison, Wisconsin now, so I'm surrounded by a bunch of cheeseheads and stuff. But I'm a proud and true Bills Mafia member. But obviously, I love all football. So any football is fun football.
Well, since we're talking about the Cowboys, I guess we could talk about we could start with the NFC East with the Eagles, Giants, and the Commanders. Almost said Redskins. Sorry.
It's good. It's a real interesting division because the Eagles, Cowboys, and Giants could all be playoff teams this year, which is really hard to see 3 teams from one to the playoff. The Commanders are newly sold. They got approved to be sold today, so they're sold to the new owner for, I think, $6 billion or something ridiculous like that. Dan Snyder, the previous owner, got fined $60 million. I don't believe that the Commanders are going to make a push. I actually wouldn't be surprised if we see them trade some of their assets. Terry McLaurin, a couple defensive stars, maybe even Antonio Gibson, based on the ownership group. That ownership group that bought the Commanders is the same one that bought the Sixers and the Devils, and both of them went through their process of rebuilding once they bought over. So they got rid of some of their aging assets, acquired draft picks, and went from there. So I think we could still see that shift for the Commanders this year. Now in football, that process should be quicker, but you could see them trade Terry McLaurin mid-season and get a first next year, maybe a first and a third, and they could start selling house, right? They have a young quarterback in Sam Howell, who I like, who some people like, some people don't. I think he could be okay, but if you can get 2-3 picks, if they can walk away after this year with 4 first-round picks over the next 2 years, I think they'd be really happy to do that and start their own process. Now, we've seen with the Sixers and the New Jersey Devils that process has not netted championships yet. It even hasn't netted finals appearances yet. So I think as a Commanders fans, people are going to be trust the process. They're going to be excited, but I think ultimately they fall short. But it's a stacked division. Eagles are obviously cream of the crop, went to the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts is still a great quarterback. I actually have him as my number 1 quarterback in Dynasty. I think his upside, his age, doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on the tires compared to someone like Josh Allen. He's not as good as a passer as Patrick Mahomes, but his rushing ability for fantasy is there. Giants are contingent on Saquon Barkley, so we'll see what happens with that, with him possibly holding out this year.
Okay.
So, even though Barkley not signing his contract or a long-term deal, you think the Giants still have a legitimate chance?
If Barkley doesn't play, no. I don't think they have a shot without Barkley.
I don't think so.
That offense is built around Barkley. Now, I think Matt Breida, I think Gary Brightwell, I think Eric Gray are good complementary pieces. I don't think they can fill in for what Barkley is on that offense. I mean, Barkley's a top 5 running back. He is top 10 in targets for running backs. I like Darren Waller's okay. I'm concerned about his health. So without Barkley, that team is hurting. I don't believe Barkley sits out. I think Barkley wants to be on the team. They were only $2 million apart. Now, he came out and said, I could sit out and I could say F you to the ownership. I could say F you to my teammates. If he sits out now, he's basically saying F you to his teammates, and I don't think he gets a job next year. If he wants a contract next year somewhere else, he has to play. He wants to be with the Giants. Unlike Josh Jacobs, who doesn't want to be with the Raiders, Barkley wants to be there. He wants to continue what they started, so I think he does play come like that.
Yeah, Dustin, I have a quick question for you, because Mickey gave me his take on that. How do you think Tony Pollard's going to do this year, coming back off with that broken ankle?
I think Tony Pollard's fine. I've always had questions about his durability in terms of can he handle 200 plus carries or touches. I do think they work in Malik Davis or they bring in someone else. So they could easily bring in Leonard Fournette for that goal line work, which would hurt Pollard's value. But I think it would produce a higher quality touches, would keep the touches down. I still think Pollard's a top 20 running back. Like, I think he's right in that fringe of running back 1, running back 2. So in that 12 to 15 range this year.
And if that turns out to be the case too, he's definitely being overdrafted in fantasy football right now as a late second round pick. I think a lot of people are expecting that, Zeke-like workhorse 300 plus type of role, and that's just not really. Tony Pollard's a guy built on efficiency and not necessarily the idea of volume, but I mean, he did have 200 plus touches last year as well. So we'll see how things shake out. But there's so many free agents available in the running back space. You got to think they're going to bring somebody in.
And then Dallas did go pick up Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State, so that should help Tony a little bit.
Deuce Vaughn has a lot of questions for me with his size, if he can even hold up to the NFL.
Teeny tiny, yeah.
He's a teeny. I mean, I was at the combine. He's a teeny tiny guy. Like, when we talk size for football players, when you're talking about a guy that's 6'1", 6'2", versus a 5'11", 5'10" guy, noticeably it's not different. For me, it's the shoulder broadness and the thickness. When I look at someone like Deuce Vaughn, he is frail. He's very narrow in the shoulders and in his thickness. Same thing with Jordan Addison, which we'll talk about later. Same thing with Bryce Young. Like, they're just not thick guys. When I see Bryce Young stand next to C.J. Stroud, there's a 2-inch difference, maybe 3. But C.J. Stroud just looks bigger. He's broader. He's wider. He just carries himself differently. So I worry about Deuce Vaughn. He's going to be electric when he gets the ball. I just don't know how often he can get the ball with his size and frame.
Yeah, he's going to be a really exciting NFL player from a fantasy football standpoint. He's not one of those guys that's going to get enough touches to become fantasy football relevant, most likely. So, but he kind of reminds me, not necessarily in terms of like play style, but I think of like Tavon Austin, where he's just kind of he's an exciting NFL player that might not translate to the game of fantasy football.
Yeah, he reminds me, and this is an old school reference, but Dave Meggett, who was a basically a kick return guy for, I believe it was Washington back in the day. And I worked at a baseball card shop in junior high, and the guy would say, "Look at that little Meggett run!" Like he would just get these kickoff turns, and he would just juke and jive on the kickoffs and punt returns, but he just wasn't a offensive weapon. He's a special teams weapon.
Now, as a fantasy football player, who should I take in the first round?
Where are you drafting from? If you're in the front end, it's hard to argue with somebody like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey. A lot of those are the obvious ones. Dustin, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on the back end of drafts this year. Back end of the first round this year. I've actually really liked the idea of, which is way against what I usually do, but I really like the idea of grabbing like two of a Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor type of combo. Otherwise, you can always go with like Stephon Diggs, Nick Chubb type of thing. But really, it kind of depends on where you're drafting from in the first round.
Yeah, I agree, Mikey, that the end of the first round, if you're playing in a one quarterback league, whether you play PPR or not, I think someone like an Austin Eckler is great there if you can get them. And going that Austin Eckler, I think a Nick Chubb's a good pick. Even if you can get, if you can get an AJ Brown and an Austin Eckler, or you can get even a Saquon Barkley if you're okay with his holdout, like one of those three running backs and then one of the receivers. So most likely Jefferson, Chase, Tyreek Hill are going to be gone. But if you can get A.J. Brown, you can get Stephon Diggs. I'm out on Garrett Wilson this year, but that's just me. I really like kind of
pretty expensive, yeah.
I mean, if you're in the middle, if you're like the 108 and you can pick up an Austin Eckler and get maybe an Amon-Ra St. Brown coming back in the second round, I like that stack as well. I think when you're in that position, you have to look running back, wide receiver in some combination, because you just can't stack two. So you can't do two running backs. You can't do two wide receivers. I think you're cutting yourself too thin there because of the way the draft's going to go. Because once it comes back to you in the third, you're going to start seeing you're going to be out of a tier on running back. You're going to be out of the tier on wide receiver. And then you're talking quarterback early, or maybe you take a Travis Kelce early. I like going running back, wide receiver there.
Yeah, and it's the way that the draft sets up this year sets up that way as well, where you can take one or the other in rounds 1 and 2.
So you're saying round 1, take a quarterback, and round 2, take a running back.
I would only take a quarterback in round 1 if it's a super flex. You can start 2 quarterbacks. If you can only start 1, I think you go running back, wide receiver.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, quarterback, you're probably not touching. You maybe second round. There's sometimes you see guys like Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, but even still, that's a little too close for comfort. I'd rather go like early third on those guys if we're going quarterback. But yeah, like Dustin said, definitely not first round if you're only starting one quarterback in your league.
Now, what about if you want to get like a second and third string quarterback? How would you do that?
In one quarterback leagues, what I like to do is I like to wait on quarterback. So I like to get one in the 4th, 5th round and then pick another one in 8, 9. So get a guy, if I can get, if it's a redraft league, if I can pick up Jared Goff, a Geno Smith, and Aaron Rodgers in that 5, 6 range, and then I can wait and pick up someone like a Mac Jones or one of the high upside young guys like a Sam Howell or a Desmond Ridder, or even like a Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a good quarterback, not great for fantasy, but can still have those spike weeks. I think that's the way to do it. You can pick up one of those guys that you just kind of go, but you're only going to need them 1 week unless there's an injury. So I'm okay picking up those guys that can have spike weeks. In one quarterback leagues, what I like to do is I like to look at the quarterbacks and pair them up. So find your top 6, find your top 10 guys and go, okay, Dak Prescott's got a week 13 bye. Okay, who's got a good matchup on week 13? So looking through the matchups and going, okay, they're playing, maybe you got Mac Jones is playing a really bad secondary. Like, if Mac Jones is playing the Jets, he's not a good pair for you with Dak Prescott because you don't want that for his bye week. So you really got to play those matchups because in a one quarterback league, that backup quarterbacks should only play 1 week for you.
Yeah, and one thing that I would add there too, Dustin, is, if you're playing, a lot of people, if you're playing in just like your typical run-of-the-mill redraft league where it's, 8 to 12 guys, 15 roster spots, I wouldn't, a lot of times I don't even draft a second quarterback because you're running out of space where you can spend some of that roster space on more important positions like running back, wide receiver, and then just grab any old quarterback off the waiver wire come that bye week. But yeah, if you're playing in deeper leagues, everything Dustin said makes a lot of sense to me. If you're in a deeper league with like more roster spots, for example.
You're muted, Adam.
I was gonna say can't hear him. Can't hear you. It happens. We actually, guys, we had a former NBA player / coach, and I was the same platform that we use for our podcast, and I didn't realize that the link wasn't being shared to Facebook, and the show never got recorded, and I can't get the guy to come back on. He won't come back on, so he's pissed at me for the technical difficulties. So it is what it is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. All right, cool. That explains why I couldn't get a word in edgewise. So I have a question about Terry McLaurin. Would you say he's a late round value pick if you're expecting him to possibly get moved? So you can hold on to him, and then if he gets sent to, let's say, Kansas City. Let's say he gets sent. The Chiefs pick him up for a first and a second in 2024, or a first in 25. Would you say that's a good, and then use him as like trade bait? Like, let's say your quarterback goes down, you need a quarterback. You're gonna flip McCollum, hold on to McCollum, he gets moved, then flip him for something of value later.
Yeah, I like Terry McLaurin this year, even if he stays on the Commanders all season. I think he's the clear number one. He's going to see 120 plus targets. I think Sam Howell's a decent quarterback. McLaurin does everything really well. If he gets moved, he's probably going to get moved to a contender, right? Like, you're not going to see the Texans trading for McLaurin midseason, right? Because they're not going to be in it. He's going to go to Buffalo or Kansas City or another contender, Dallas, if someone goes down. Like, he's going to go to a really good team that wants to make that extra push. So I think he does hold a ton of value. I just took him in a league. It's a redraft. It's a super flex, but I just got McLaurin in the 6th round, and I was ecstatic to have him as my wide receiver too. So I think he does have the value. I enjoy drafting players that are good, that could also see that bump in hype and value later on. So I was big on drafting DeAndre Hopkins like earlier in the season. Was really good, and then was like, you knew he was going to get signed somewhere.
Not anymore.
Right, and so luck, unfortunately, didn't work out, but you knew that hype was going to come, right? So you see those guys who have that hype, and I think a lot of people aren't talking about McLaurin as a possible move target. I think he's coming up on his contract, so he could easily be shipped out. And even if you have him in a dynasty format, I think he's going to be a hyped up next year, because I think he's going to hit the market sooner rather than later. So yeah, I do like McLaurin to hold him. If you have to keep him all year, he's going to be good, but he might have some trade value if he gets moved.
Should we move to the NFC South?
One question before we do that. How do you think the Calvin Ridley suspension, how do you think that's going to hurt him in the fantasy draft?
It's actually not hurting him at all. He's actually going in the 3rd round of fantasy drafts this year, which, Dustin, I don't know how you feel about. To me, that's insane, because this guy he's played hardly a lick of football in like 2 years. I know the upside's there. We've seen a top 10 finish from him in the past, but you look at average draft position, you see him being drafted ahead of guys like Amari Cooper, Deebo Samuel. There's just he's the 17th wide receiver off the board right now in fantasy football drafts, around pick 33-ish overall. Mm-hmm. So we're talking, about late 3rd round, which to me, I know that upside is there, but it's really hard to pull the trigger on a guy that hasn't played in like 2 years. And then you still got Christian Kirk. They still got Zay Jones. They got Evan Ingram. There's just a lot, and it's going to be a great offense that can put a lot of points on the board. But Calvin Ridley to me is too expensive. Where I'm out on Calvin Ridley this year. I don't know about you, Dustin.
I mean, I kind of like him. I think that upside's there. I have traditionally not been a believer in Trevor Lawrence, and he kind of changed my mind last year. I agree. His value is really high. I think he's in that wide receiver, what I call the glob, of like that 10 to 16, 15 range. Like, he should finish in there. I mean, even the year when he was a top 10 wide receiver, like he could have been easily. You take away 1 or 2 touchdowns, and you go from 9 or whatever he finished down to 15 or something. So he should be there. The rust will be a factor, but he's unlike guys that are injured. Calvin Ridley could still work out on his own. What we saw with guys who were injured is they can't work out, and that's where the rust sets in. Even someone like Deshaun Watson had a lot of rust because Deshaun Watson just didn't work out. Calvin Ridley's got a whole offseason with the team. He worked out all last year. Like, he's going to be up and ready to go. I think he'll be fine. I don't see a ton of rust because he can be with the team. Like, he's had nothing but time to learn that playbook. Even last year, until he was suspended, he could still learn the playbook. Like, they sent him the playbook last year when he got traded to him. And he's had a happy year just learning tape, watching game calls, talking to the team, like
getting hungry. Yeah.
Yeah, he couldn't be in the facility, but he's there knowing, and he saw what they did last year, and he knows that team's on the cusp of being great. So I think he's going to come in and ball out. I still think he's a little high for me, but I'm okay taking him if I get in a spot in my drafts where there's just no one else really there.
We can, guys, go to the NFC South. I'm from the Tampa Bay area, born and raised in Florida. But I'm a Pats fan. Sorry, Dustin. I'm a Patriot fan. So I'm in the AFC East with you. But the Bucs, Saints, Panthers, and the Falcons. This division's interesting because it's all brand new. This is probably the worst division in all of the NFL this year going into it. So
say that again.
What are you guys? What's your take, Mikey and Dustin, on the NFC South and how it's all going to play out with fantasy and how you think overall the division and all that stuff in retrospect?
Sorry, you said NFC South, and I just kind of fell asleep there.
Went south.
Yeah, man, I don't know. Dustin, I don't know if you want to field this one. I mean, obviously, we're not expecting a lot of fireworks out of Baker Mayfield and company, and I like Bryce Young a lot, but it's,
you got Mike Evans still, and
yeah, I mean,
okay.
I think the big misconception people have for fantasy is that bad teams don't produce fantasy assets, and they do, right? You'll still see Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I'm really big on Rashad White because he should get a ton of volume. In New Orleans, you'll see Jamal Williams will have a ton of touchdowns. Chris Olave is still going to get a ton of targets. Like, you'll still see fantasy viable pieces on teams that'll have 9 wins, maybe. Like, the winner of that division is going to be maybe a game over 5. Like, they might be 9-8. We might see an 8-8 division winner again. We might see a 7-9 division winner again. But you'll still have plenty of fantasy assets. I'm big on Rashad White. I think he's going to get a ton of volume. I'm big on Miles Sanders. I think he gets a ton of volume.
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of out on Bryce Young. I wasn't real thrilled with him at the combine and at the draft. I'm still a believer in Kyle Trask. I think he can take over midseason for the Buccaneers and be decent. I'm still buying Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, Mike Evans has had 1,000 yards for like 10 years now. He's going to get 1,000 yards again. If you get 1,000 yards as a receiver, you're a wide receiver 2 at minimum for fantasy.
Mike Evans has always been good for me.
Yeah.
Kyle Trask taking over. Wow. A Florida quarterback having success in the NFL? I don't know. We'll see. Anthony Richardson might prove me wrong this year, but we'll see. I'm a Gator, so I just Gator quarterbacks don't do very well in the NFL. Never have. So
Mikey and Dustin, who do you see winning the NFC South?
Ooh, who do I see winning the NFC South? I think it's got to be New Orleans. Derek Carr is the most proven quarterback in that division. He's probably got the most proven running back in Alvin Kamara. If Alvin Kamara plays all his game, I think Alvin Kamara only gets 1 to 2 game suspension. But he's got Jamal Williams. He's got Michael Thomas, who should play football this year, hopefully. Like, he hasn't played in forever, it seems. Chris Olave is the up-and-coming star. Derek Carr is confident enough to lead that team to 9 wins. He might get to 10, and I think they should win that division hands down. So if you're a betting man, that's where I'm putting my odds. I would love to see what the odds are for the Saints to win that division, because I think people are going to be betting the hype of Bryce Young and the hype of Bijan, and I think I'd rather bet the Saints.
Yeah.
No disagreement here. I would go Saints too, and I don't think there's not anybody else in the running that is particularly close to me. I'd probably go Carolina next, but I think it's New Orleans pretty pretty safely.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in Frank Reich. I mean, he's a former Bill backup, and I love him as a person and a coach, and I think he can lead that team. I think they're a year out. I'm not a huge believer in Bryce Young, but I think they'll be competitive. I'm not a huge – it depends on how long I think Baker Mayfield gets the job in Tampa Bay, and I think it's going to be – I think they have a week 8 or 9 bye, so I think it could be sooner rather than – I think around that's when Kyle Trask takes over, and I think they'll have a great push to the end of the season, but I think it's going to be too little too late for Tampa. And Atlanta's going to be something. Like Desmond Ridder, I think, is good. Bijan Robinson's good. Kyle Pitts is good. Drake London's good. But does that mesh on the field and make for a good team? I'm not sure it does.
Yeah, and to answer your question, Dustin, you got the Saints are favored, plus 130. And then after that, the Falcons are actually – they have the second best odds to take the division. And then Carolina. Tampa Bay's got twice as worse of odds as the next closest.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is –
plus 2,500.
Yeah, everyone's been hyped for the Falcons, right? Everyone was hyped for Drake London. Everyone was hyped for Kyle Pitts. Everyone's hyped for Bijan Robinson. That love and that excitement, and that's I think that's a holdover from fantasy. Fantasy players love the shiny new toy, right? That's what we love. We love these rookies. We think they're going to be the next greatest thing in the world, and then they just come out and they're okay. And I think Bijan Robinson is being overdrafted because I think he's just okay, and I don't think he gets as many touches as people say. People are going, Bijan's got this, pass catching upside, and I'm going, where do you see that? Because it didn't happen in college, so I'm not sure where you're seeing that from. He's a good runner, and they're saying Atlanta runs the ball a ton, but they ran the ball because they didn't have a quarterback most of the season. And even if they do, they have Tyler Algier, and they have Cordero Patterson. So I don't think Bijan – I think Bijan, for me, is a bust this year. A bust in terms of he's being drafted as –
what we're expecting.
Yeah, he's being drafted as like the number 1, number 2, number 3 running back, and I think he finishes outside the top 10.
Yeah, he's already considered the greatest running back of all time.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Now, who did y'all see winning the NFC East?
I think Eagles.
It's got to be the Eagles, yeah.
I agree with that.
I think Eagles.
I'm a Cowboys fan.
Eagles,
Dallas
Cowboys,
will run,
Giants, Commanders is how I think it'll finish, and I think, like I said, I think Eagles, Cowboys, and Giants can all make the playoffs.
Yeah. Agreed.
So then, Mikey, we'll go to your division, and it's the NFC North: Packers, Lions, Bears, and Vikings. Again, Aaron Rodgers is gone. I don't know, Mikey, how you feel about that. Most Packer fans are glad he's gone. Too much drama for all those years that he left you guys wondering if, am I coming back? Am I not coming back? I'm going to go, sit in this dark room, smoke weed or whatever he did while he was out. And hey, if you do weed, that's fine. That's your life choice. But anyway, happy he's gone. So that division now, I think is a little shook up. The Lions had a good close to the season a year ago. Chicago's kind of, you got Justin Fields. How do you guys both see that division playing out, and what are the top fantasy guys in that division?
Yeah,
ahead,
man.
Mike,
So
you're
to answer your question, what's that?
You're the Packers fan, so I'll let you take the lead on that.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Aaron Rodgers defender for a long time, right? Because I knew he gave Green Bay the best chance. We know he's a great thrower of the football, right? We've seen it, but I'm not going to lie to you guys. I mean, there's definitely a part of me that is excited I don't have to root for him anymore. That's more of a personal fandom thing more than a football analysis thing. But let me say this: with sports betting is not yet legal in Wisconsin. However, they did open up a sports book at our local casino called Potawatomi, and the first 2 legal bets that I've made in Wisconsin as a Packers fan are the Bears to win the NFC North and Justin Fields to win MVP. Now, I don't think Justin Fields will win MVP, but I really love the odds that he was catching and the upside that he brings to the table with the ability.
It's a value bet.
What's that?
It's a value bet.
100%, yeah. So it kind of stung a little bit taking, the Bears to win the North and Justin Fields to
Now,
win
the problem
MVP,
in
but
Green
I mean,
Bay, I don't trust Jordan Love.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I think he's going to be one of the biggest mysteries in football coming into 2023. And I love that it's Packers Bears to kind of like start the season off in that division. So we'll see, man. I can't say I trust Jordan Love, but hopes are high here, right? They're saying all the right things. We're seeing all the right things. So we'll see. It's one of those things where it's just time will tell. That whole offense is remade. It's very young, right? It's still Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, and they don't even have Robert Tonyan anymore. They went and drafted Luke Musgrave, who I love, by the way, as a prospect. I think ultimately we're going to see a lot of ball control offense from the Packers, where it's going to be as much A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones as you can handle, and trying to limit the amount of work that they put on Jordan Love's plate. They can't say, hey, number 12, go win us this football game anymore. It needs to be much more of a controlled football game. So they're going to rely on that defense. They're going to rely on the running game. And hopefully we see a lot more of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones on the field together at the same time, especially still with some question marks in that in the Packers receiving room for sure.
Yeah.
Now, how do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to do with the Jets?
I think he's going to be great. If there's one thing I learned as a Packers fan, it's chip on his shoulder. Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. And he's going to be out to prove. He's going to be out to prove something this year. And he gets Monday Night Football against the Bills to open up the season, and he's going to want to show everybody that he's not washed up after last year. And I think I am terrified of what I am going to have to watch as a Packers fan. I'm very excited to see him on Hard Knocks, though, because I want to see the personality that he manufactures with the cameras rolling. I can't wait to see what he's like on Hard Knocks this year. But to answer your question, I think he's going to be terrific,
lights out
as a quarterback. Chip on his shoulder, Aaron Rodgers is a bad man.
And we all know that Rodgers is a Cowboy killer, so we play them in week 2, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, oh no, here we go again. Rodgers is going to kill us.
Yeah, Rodgers should be fine. I mean, it's definitely hard for the Packers and Packers fans who went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers now to Jordan Love, right? Like they've had that. You guys, Packers fans have had that luxury of really good quarterbacks back to back. We're like,
30 years.
Next to this is a Jim Kelly jersey, which, we had Jim Kelly, then a whole bunch of nothing. Now we have Josh Allen. So the NFC North in itself is a interesting division because I think every team has a pathway to win that division, right? Yeah. The Vikings have been good, but they're now a little bit different with no Dalvin Cook, no Adam Thielen. You bring in Jordan Addison. The Lions are up and coming, who I really like, but they lose Jamison Williams for 6 games. You've got the Bears, who got DJ Moore, brought in Deontay Foreman, drafted Roschon Johnson to help Justin Fields. You still have the Packers, who have this, exciting group of receivers, but this unproven quarterback. I think your bet for Justin Fields to win MVP is a smart value bet, because if he has close to what Lamar did when Lamar won MVP, he doesn't even have to get there to have it. He has to have probably 1,100 rushing yards, 6-7 touchdowns on the ground. He probably has to throw for 30 and keep his interceptions down. I think he has a real good shot at winning MVP. Health is going to be the issue, I think, with Justin Fields. That O-line was Swiss cheese last year. He runs a lot, so if he starts getting dinged and dunked, he's not going to win. If he misses a game, you're out of MVP, right? Like, that's just the way it's going to go. I like the Lions to win that division. I love Kirk Cousins. I love him even more after watching Quarterback on Netflix. I think he showed that the personality he was. I am completely and 100% out on Jordan Addison. I've been out on Jordan Addison since the combine. I think he's a bust. I think he's an NFL bust. Like, I don't even think Jordan Addison's going to make it in the NFL. I think he's going to disappoint. I think he's the 3rd best target on that team. I have a lot of concerns with. So my Jordan Addison take is I've interviewed Jordan Addison 3 times, and I think he's going to struggle to pick up the playbook, make smart decisions. Obviously, he's not doing that if he's driving 144 in a 50 mile an hour zone. I think he's going to struggle on audibles. Yeah. I think when they change the plane, I don't think he has the gumption to change it. I don't think Jordan Addison loves football. If you listen to him, he talked about, even when he got drafted, they were like, you get to go play with Justin Jefferson. He said, let's go make that money. It wasn't, let's go win it. It's like, let's go make that money. Jordan Addison came across to me as a guy who is good at football and can make a living at it, not someone who loves football. When you look at guys like, when I talk to Zay Flowers, who I absolutely love. Zay Flowers loves the game of football. Zay Flowers would play professional football for free because he loves the game. Jordan Addison would not do that. And when we talk Bryce Young's size, Jordan Addison is small and narrow. They were at a middle school. The Wednesday before the draft, they were at a middle school doing a Play 60 event. I was there interviewing them. And I thought Jordan Addison was a middle schooler. Like, he was short, small, and skinny. He's going to get picked up on the line by these bigger corners. He's going to get roughed up over the middle. It's just not going to go well for Jordan Addison, in my opinion. So I like the Lions to win the division. I think the Vikings struggle. I do think we could see the winner of the division, and I think we get a wild card out of that division as well.
I'm too jaded. I won't believe it until I see it. Because I've heard that for 30 years. They finally turned the corner. And every turn it's been a wrong turn. And I'm not a Dan Campbell fan. I think he's too much of a clown. I think he's too much of a goober. And I don't believe in Dan Campbell. And I know that everyone's super high on Dan Campbell, but I've just never bought in.
Here's what I'll say about Dan Campbell. I don't think Dan Campbell is a good football coach, but I think Dan Campbell is an exceptional motivator of men. And when I say that is, like, when Dan Campbell gets a guy who is struggling, Dan Campbell can talk you up. If you watched Hard Knocks last year, you listen to Dan Campbell, you get fired up just listening to him. He's going to motivate his players to play above their level just because he's such a great motivator. Now, when it comes to the actual X's and O's and game clock management, I think he does struggle and calling the right plays, but I think he's surrounded himself with a decent enough staff that he's delegated those things. But I love that he's a great motivator of men, and I think he's going to get the most out of his guys. I think we'll see guys leave the Lions. So, like Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams was in tears last year talking about the Lions. Now he's with New Orleans. Does Jamal Williams still get us fired up for the Saints as he did the Lions? I'm not sure he does now. Jamal Williams is a character. But I think everyone that's on the Lions plays above their level because Dan Campbell motivates them and talks them up and gets them encouraged and gets them hyped for the games. I do question his X's and O play calling ability, but I think he's delegated that enough.
Well, Mikey, I guess we'll be back. We can move on, guys, to the NFC West, which is the Niners, Seahawks, Cardinals, and who am I forgetting?
Niners, Seahawks, Cardinals, and who are we forgetting? Oh, Rams.
The Rams. Okay, there we go. Okay.
I knew there was another California team.
Yeah.
I know. I said Niners, Seahawks. I'm like, there's got to be somebody else out there. I know.
The Rams.
I know, Dustin, that the Cardinals are really in shambles. Their quarterback's going to be coming back from an ACL injury. San Francisco obviously is still pretty strong. Seattle, Geno Smith, I think, surprised everybody last year with the performance that he had. And I guess, I don't know if you guys know this or not, they're doing their throwback blue. I think the Seahawks are doing their throwback blue this year. The Bucs are doing their creamsicle against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are coming to Tampa. They're wearing the old creamsicle jerseys. But Dustin, what are your thoughts on the NFC West with the 4 teams out there?
It's all about the quarterbacks in that division. Arizona, I think, is out. I think Kyler doesn't come back until midseason, if at all.
Okay.
I think we could see Arizona just go, we're not going to rush you back, or maybe come back and play the last 5-6 games just so they can try to get trade value. I think he's done in Arizona. So we'll see Colt McCoy, or if you're playing deep fantasy, keep an eye on Clayton Tune. If you play Dynasty, I think he's someone I'm stashing on my rosters, or you could see him start maybe week 5-6 if McCoy's out there and they realize Kyler's not coming back. The Rams have a good team, right? They have Cooper Kupp, who's one of the best receivers in the league. It just becomes down to Stafford and his health.
Okay.
Matthew Stafford's wife wanted him to retire. She was in tears about him getting hit. So one hit, Stafford could be done. Like him and his wife could just say, "Hey, I'm walking away." He's not a young guy. Like he wants to compete. He says he's coming back, but I think one hit and they could be done. So again, if you're in a deep league or you're in a dynasty league, Stetson Bennett is the backup. Now, Stetson Bennett is, how do I put this nicely? Not the personality I want for my team, but when it comes to athletic skills, he's got it. If Stetson Bennett was a nicer guy and we didn't have character concerns for him, he's probably a second-round pick in the draft. Because he has character concerns, he fell super far down.
Well, he's also older.
He is older, right? But he won back-to-back national championships. Like, you can't discredit that. Seattle's all about Geno Smith. I'm a firm believer that once is a fluke, twice is a pattern, 3 times is a trend. I was surprised that he had such a good season last year. But if you look at his games, he only had 5 games where he threw 1 or fewer touchdowns. He was multiple touchdowns in almost every game. Now, he had 30 touchdowns, but he also had 11 interceptions. If Dak doesn't throw like whatever he threw, 12 or 15, we're talking about Geno's interceptions costing them games. I think Geno now was 1 year of good Geno versus the past 9 of bad Geno or being a backup. We'll see. I think they can be all right. I think JSN eventually gets some role, but I think he's going to be worked in. I think this is the Niners' division to lose. They have been the cream of the crop. Now, quarterback's going to be an issue. Whether it's Brock Purdy, whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Sam Darnold, will matter. But that team has done well no matter who's in there as long as it's an actual quarterback. They lost in the NFC Championship game because they were throwing out some guy who barely plays quarterback. So whoever it is going to be good. They have the weapons, right? When you're talking Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Elijah Mitchell, like you have this cream of crop around that makes every quarterback look good. So I think it's the Niners' division to win. I'm not sure we see a wild card team out of there, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Seahawks or Rams made a wild card. I think they'll be in the hunt, but I think they just miss out at the end.
Okay. Well, I guess then we can move to the AFC side, and since you have 4 of us here are AFC East fans, so we can talk about that. Lewis is a Jets fan. Me and Adam are Patriot guys. You're a Bills guy. So that leaves out the Miami Dolphins, who are in my home state. So, Dustin, what is what? Obviously, Patriots. I've been hearing talks that Bill Belichick is on the hot seat. This is it. If they don't have a winning season, he's out. As a Pats fan, I believe in Mac Jones. I think Mac was the right pick. Obviously, just like with anyone else, when you have a greatest quarterback of all time leave your team and you have shoes to fill, like with, in Indianapolis when Peyton Manning left and they brought in Andrew Luck, it's hard. The shoes are hard to fill. And the same thing happened to you guys in Buffalo when Jim Kelly stepped away. And now you have Josh Allen. But I'm just saying, so how do you see the division playing out, and what fantasy guys are you looking for in the AFC East?
All right, let me start with my Bills. It's the Bills division.
Absolutely.
Don't care what anybody says, right? We've won it the past few years. I don't think we relinquished that. I will say in the Bills, obviously Josh Allen is a top quarterback. Stephon Diggs is a top wide receiver. I'm going to slow the roll for anybody that says Dalton Kincaid is the guy you should want. I'm completely out on Dalton Kincaid. I think he's a tremendous talent. Everyone's always lining up in the slot. The Bills don't use the slot receiver that often. We still have Dawson Knox. We have Khalil Shakir. We have Gabe Davis. I'm not sure Dalton Kincaid's going to return investment. After the Bills, for me, it is Dolphins or Jets. People are saying Super Bowl for the Jets now that they've got Aaron Rodgers. I don't think the Jets make the playoffs. I think the Dolphins do make the playoffs. I think they're a wildcard team. I'm a believer in Tua. You can question the health all you want. The concussion thing is iffy on if having a concussion makes you more susceptible. From the data I've read and the doctors I've talked to, it does sound like it does make you a little more likely, but not as more likely. Taking jiu-jitsu to fall better, whatever. They've bulked up their offensive line. They've bulked up their defense. I think they're going to be competitive. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle are still there. They have a good team. Now, if they can sign Dalvin Cook to play running back, I like them even more. I still don't like them to overtake the Bills, but that would definitely stir up that thing. Devon A-Chain is there as a rookie. I think he's in that muck. I think he can come out of that murk of the running backs with all the other guys there, but I'm not sure he's a talented running back. My issue with the Jets, Aaron Rodgers is going to be good. Garrett Wilson will be good. I've been saying for a while now that I am predicting the Deontay Johnson season for Garrett Wilson in the fact that he will have a ton of targets, a ton of yards, but very few touchdowns. Allen Lazard is Aaron Rodgers' best friend. He's 6'4". He's the red zone threat. Allen Lazard, for me, is the guy I want in fantasy because he's going to score a ton of touchdowns. I think Garrett Wilson could easily have a season where he sees 120-plus targets, probably gets 1,200 yards, and maybe has 2 touchdowns. And people go, oh, my gosh, I can't believe Garrett Wilson stinks now. Aaron Rodgers ruined Garrett Wilson. I think it's just going to be that fluky year for Garrett Wilson. I believe in Mac Jones. For Patriots fans, believe in Mac Jones. My philosophy on quarterbacks is this. It's 25% skill, 25% coaching, 25% mental, and 25% team around you. Mac Jones has the skills. Last year, he didn't have the coaching. They didn't even have an offensive coordinator in New England last year. Hopefully this year with Bill O'Brien, he doesn't really have the talent around him, so I'm curious about that. And the mental game is going to be the issue because we've seen Mac Jones kind of throw hissy fits. We've seen Bailey Zappi come in and be good, so are they going to just switch to Bailey Zappi if Mac Jones struggles in a game or two? I think Mac Jones will be better. Like I said earlier, if you are drafting in a one-quarterback league and you can get even a Joe Burrow or a Tua, and you can get Mac Jones late, and he's got a good opponent for your guys' bye week, I think he's the guy to take. He had a really good rookie year. I think they're still bottom of that division, but I think it's going to be competitive. I see Bills winning the division, Dolphins being a wild card team. Lots of fantasy options in that division. Even the Patriots, right? You've got Ramondre Stevenson. Patriots are the leaders to possibly get Dalvin Cook. So that could those range. I think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be okay. I really like Mike Gesicki for the Patriots. So there's a lot of fantasy relevant players coming out of that division. I think it's probably the most competitive division in football right now.
So on the Garrett Wilson, you're saying a lot of catches in between the 80s then, or in between the 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he could just – I mean, if you look at Deontay Johnson last year, he had – I'll pull it up. He had 147 targets, caught 87 balls, had 882 yards and 0 touchdowns. Finished as wide receiver 30. I think Garrett Wilson sees close to what he saw last year, which was 147 targets, so similar targets as Deontay Johnson. 147 targets, 83 receptions, had 1,103 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think he sees similar targets. Maybe it drops to maybe the 125 range. Still catches probably 70 to 80 of them. Probably has 1,000 yards. But again, if he only has 1 or 2 touchdowns, Garrett Wilson finished as the wide receiver 21 with 4 touchdowns. If you take away 2 of those touchdowns from him, he drops the wide receiver probably 30, and he's being drafted as a top 10 wide receiver right now. So I'm out on him. If I'm in a dynasty league, I'm hoping he has a couple bad first weeks, and I can kind of buy that dip. The Jets are going to be good, but they have to beat the Dolphins twice. They got to beat the Bills twice. If they only go 3-3 in their division, that's not good enough. They have to go 4-2, and I'm not sure they came in their division to make the playoff run. They've got a real tough schedule. And Aaron Rodgers could be an issue late in the season for the Jets. If the Jets aren't doing good, we've seen Aaron Rodgers kind of
take
his ball and go home. And they could have Aaron Rodgers for 1 year, and he could retire after this year, and then the Jets are just
screwed.
The Jets are going to jet, right? Like, that's what they do. They can't get a quarterback to save their lives. They've fumbled that position for years and years now. They hope it's Aaron Rodgers. We'll see.
And that's why I was big on them drafting Stetson Bennett in the 5th round. Yeah. I thought Stetson Bennett to the Jets was a super value pick because, then you get Stetson Bennett to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for 2 years, learn the playbook, learn the system. Then he's coming in with a seasoned veteran cast around him, and you're not in 2026 or 2025, whatever it ends up being, where Aaron Rodgers last year ends up being. You're not scrambling and having to mortgage the farm to be able to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, I thought the Jets should have taken someone, whether that's a Stetson Bennett or a Max Duggan or even a Hendon Hooker, who I really like. Like, they should have taken a young guy just to sit behind Rodgers because you might get 1 year, you might get 3 years, you might get 5. Who knows that Aaron Rodgers? Like, that's the volatility you get there. And I think if they have a poor year, we could see them clean house. Aaron Rodgers gone, the coach is gone, like Saleh could be gone. They could all just clean house. Ownership could just go, hey, this didn't work. We tried it. Let's try something else.
Like you said, we get to week 13 and they're struggling, and they're 2-9, and Rodgers doesn't want to play ball anymore. I'm not saying that they will be, but I'm just saying they could be terrible, and Rodgers is just done, and then you're screwed for the next 10 years.
And that's the fear with Rodgers, and that's what the Packers have lived with is how do we manage that temperament where we still want him engaged with the team and want him to play and not have to worry about him all of a sudden just going, sorry, I'm going to go home now. I'm done playing.
And it was sort of Damocles.
Yep.
All right, so let's do AFC South. That's the Colts, Jags, Texans, and Titans. I know Houston obviously they're a mess, as we all know. Tennessee's going through some changes. Indianapolis drafted Anthony Richardson out of Florida. And the Jaguars were the surprise team a year ago. And Dustin, I have to agree with you. I didn't really believe in their quarterback, and he surprised the hell out of me last year. So what are your thoughts on the AFC South?
Yeah, I mean, this is the division for the Jaguars to win. I was surprised with how good they were despite Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence wasn't great last year, despite what everyone thinks. He had 6 games with multiple touchdowns, maybe 7 games with multiple touchdowns. It wasn't like he was lighting the league on fire. He only had 25 touchdowns last year. Now, he only had 8 interceptions. They got a little bit better, obviously, with Calvin Ridley. Tank Bigsby comes in to be that goal line third down back, the bigger back for him. I think this is a really competitive division. It's slightly better than the NFC South, but I think this is a crapshoot. Indianapolis drafted Anthony Richardson. If you're big on Anthony Richardson, you think they're going to be good. I am not super sold on Anthony Richardson. I think he's a project. I think he needed to sit at least 6 games, half the season, if not a full year. It sounds like he might start right away because they're going to throw him out there because Jim Irsay, the owner, is a wild man who does what he wants. They have decent weapons. They have a good running back in Jonathan Taylor. They have good receivers in Michael Pittman. They dropped Josh Downs. They have Alex Pierce. I'm not sold that the Houstons are going to be this crap show that people thought. They had a really decent year last year. They just lost some. They really lost games for themselves. They had a couple games where they were in it and just committed turnovers after turnovers and lost themselves games.
Mm-hmm.
I really like C.J. Stroud. For me, he was the best quarterback in that draft. He is a very vanilla quarterback. He is Kirk Cousins. He's not going to have this huge rushing upside. He's not going to make these big flashy plays, but he is a solid, steady quarterback. I like John Mechie, who's coming back from cancer. I like Nico Collins if he can stay healthy. He's a big receiver. I like some of the pieces they have in Houston. I like Dameon Pierce. I really like Devin Singletary. I think they could have a complete team. They brought in Dalton Schultz. Texans could make some noise and play spoiler for a team. They could play spoiler for Jacksonville if Jacksonville needs to win a couple games at the end of the season. I think the odd team out for me is Tennessee. I was shocked DeAndre Hopkins went there. DeAndre Hopkins was clearly chasing the money, not the ring, because I don't think Tennessee has a chance to win a ring there. Now, Tennessee drafted Will Levis, so that probably means with DeAndre Hopkins that Ryan Tannehill is going to start because you're not going to waste Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins with Will Levis. You're going to throw Ryan Tannehill out there and try to win some games. Up until last year, Tennessee was number 1 seed in the AFC for a long time. Like, they were the top seeds with Derrick Henry. So they're still going to have some fantasy assets. Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry. You can play the age game with Derrick Henry. He's still going to run the ball. When he's healthy, he's the best running back in football. He dominates. He's so big, so fast, so strong. I just think this division is more up in the air than people think. I think people have crowned the Jaguars as this next up-and-coming team, the young upstarts for the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Bills. I'm not sure they're quite there yet. I'd like to see more out of Trevor Lawrence. I think he has to play a little bit better. When you only have 25 touchdowns, like, that's not great. Yeah, you got to get to that 30 mark for me to be like, okay, yeah, you're a star. And Trevor Lawrence is getting drafted for fantasy really high, and I think week to week he's going to let some people down. If you look at the weeks where he didn't throw multiple, he had a couple weeks where he threw no touchdowns. Week 16 against the Jets, no touchdowns. Week 17 against Houston, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Week 5 against Houston, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Even so, he went through weeks 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He threw only 3 touchdowns and he had 4 interceptions in those weeks. So there was a couple weeks where he had nothing. Like, he was really a letdown for you in fantasy. He does pick it up for rushing, so it's going to be a tough division. I think it's going to be tougher than people think. I'm weary of the Jaguars. I like some of their pieces, but I'm not in love with it. I don't think they're this high-powered offense that everybody makes them out to be.
Dustin, my opinion, because like I said, I'm a Florida Gator. I didn't go to the University of Florida. I covered you at the USF Bulls here in Tampa, and I got to go to the Swamp last year to see him in person. I think he should have stayed in college one more year. I think it would have benefited the Gators to hold. And again, we obviously can't stop these kids from making money going to the NFL. That's what they do. But a lot of people, when they made that pick or when he announced he was leaving for the draft, I think they're like, everybody in Florida is like, why? You didn't do that much in Florida. Why are you think that you can make that leap to the NFL? And I know he had a good combine. I know he had a good pro day. So I mean, you were at the combine. Did you get the chance to see him at the combine?
I'll tell you what, he is the perfect quarterback for Jim Irsay. So combine, okay. I was there for press conferences, and the way they do press conferences, they've always table set up. This is who's coming out when, and it was C.J. Stroud came out, and everybody goes, okay, Stroud, and then it was you just see this guy walk through, and everyone goes, oh my gosh, who is that? And everybody goes, that's Anthony Richardson. Now I'm 6 foot, and I didn't stand right next to Anthony Richardson, but I stayed close enough, and I was like, oh man, he's a big dude. There's that visual aspect of like once you hit like 6'3", you look bigger than everyone else. And now I stood pretty close to Bryce Young, and I'm like, okay, he's a small 5'10". Like, and Anthony Richardson's big, and he's just dominating. And then at the combine, when he threw, if you go to the combine, it is very boring. There's no sound in the building. You have to put headphones in to listen to them talk because they don't want to distract anybody. Yeah. And they tell the fans no cheering. When he started throwing the deep balls, people were cheering. And literally we were all sitting in the media section. We're all going, we just want one more throw. The way it works is the wide receivers are out there with quarterbacks, and it's like 3 guys run a route to one quarterback, then they switch quarterbacks, and they keep going. You're like, okay, we're going to get, C.J. Stroud with these 3 wide receivers. And then if the wide receiver doesn't catch the pass, they get a second go-around. And then it's just whichever quarterback wants to throw. And everybody's just like, it was palpable in the stadium of like, we hope we see Anthony Richardson throw one more deep ball. And then it was like C.J. Stroud threw a beautiful deep ball. C.J. Stroud can chuck the ball. His pass was beautiful. And then Anthony Richardson got the ball. It was the last one. Everybody was like, oh my gosh. And everyone was just on their bed to the seat like, and he threw this ball. So the route they're supposed to run is he hikes it on the 10. He's supposed to throw when the guy's on the 30, and the guy's supposed to catch it on the 50. He would hike it on the 10, drop back to the 5. The guy he's supposed to release it when the guy's on the 30. He's releasing it when the guy's on the 40. The guy's catching it on the opposite 30 or 40. Like he just bombing out there, and people were just going, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this. It was just, he was the talk of the combine. I think the Colts and Jim Irsay fell in love with that hype, and they bought into the hype more than the realistic possibility of this is what we saw in games. This is what we've seen. Yes, Anthony Richardson can be Cam Newton. He can run around. He can chuck the ball. He's somewhat of a person, not as much personality as Cam Newton, but he definitely has the arm talent. I just wonder if he has the skills to lead a team and lead a huddle. But the hype's there. Like, people are hyped about him, and you should be hyped. If you want to take him on your team because you're excited about him, that's what fantasy's about. Get your guy that you're excited about, that you have an exciting season, but don't be upset if that hype lets you down because it could just be shallow hype, and that's all it is.
Well, I mean, like I said, there has been no Florida quarterback that's been had a successful NFL career. Not Danny Werfel, not Tim Tebow, not Spurrier, Jesse Palmer, any of them. None of them have had, I mean, flash here or there, but none of them have had. So maybe Anthony's that guy that shocks all of us and has a decent career. Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see how, like you said, Dustin, can he lead the huddle? Can he be that guy that we're going to go out there, we're going to make sure that we block for him and play for him? That's the question I guess he'll have to, during training camp, which, if I'm wrong, isn't training camp start here in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, they've kind of started. Some start staggered.
It starts this week.
Yeah, some started. Some rookies showed up last week. I will say this. Anthony Richardson does have that Josh Allen, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to bowl over people. I'm going to hype people up. So his linemen are going to be excited because at the end of the day, they're people. And they see, if you see a quarterback out there and he's hurdling guys or lowering his shoulder into guys, you go, oh my gosh, that was so cool. Like, he has that toughness to him. My question will be, yes, you can do that, but can you stay healthy and can you make the tough decision? So part of quarterback play is that borderline between cocky and confident. When you see a window that's small, the cocky guy says, oh, I can fit it in there. That's what Carson Wentz did. He said, I have the arm strength. I can do it. Will Anthony Richardson go, I can do it, but I shouldn't? And that's where I think, can he make those smart plays? He goes, I shouldn't make that throw. Let me look elsewhere. Let me throw it away or let me run. A lot of the times the guys that are cocky go, I can make it. And when it doesn't happen, they go, oh, I would make that 9 out of 10 times. This was the one time I didn't make it. Well, it ends up being they make it 5 out of 10 times, but every time they just go, I would have made it most of the time. And that's where I wonder if he can have that progression in the NFL of going, okay, that's not the – yes, I can make that play, but it's not the smart play. I've seen it with Josh Allen that I don't love. It's, oh, hey, it's 3rd and 4. I don't need you to chuck it 20 yards down the field. Throw it to the guy that's on the 5-yard flat. Throw it to your tight end to get the first down and continue to play instead of going, I can make this play down the field for 30 yards for a touchdown. I don't need those. I need smart plays. We need to see Anthony Richardson make smart plays, not exciting plays. Yes, we want to see exciting plays. The NFL wants excitement, and Jim Irsay wants excitement, and fantasy owners want excitement, but you have to have smart, reliable plays. Give me that vanilla. Give me that Kirk Cousins who's just like, okay, he's just going to dink dunk. Look at Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert threw a ton of passes, and they were all short passes. Right, he's not throwing the ball down there. He's not Mahomes in out there behind his back. No, look, he's just making smart, simple plays and moving the ball down the field. That's what I need to see from Anthony Richardson. He can make those smart plays when needed. And then when there's time to make those fun plays, you got to make those fun plays. If it's a 1st and 10 and everyone's covered and you want to roll out and run, hey, go for it. That might be the smart play at the time. Don't do it when it's second and 22 and you're all of a sudden trying to run for a first down when there was an open guy down the field just because you wanted to run him and you wanted to carry the team. Make smart plays.
Well, I mean, if you want to, Justin, we can go to the AFC West. Speaking of Hubert and Mahomes, Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, and who am I forgetting now?
Raiders.
Raiders.
That's right. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you can't bet against the Chiefs, right? Like,
right.
No.
You're not betting against Mahomes. You can say he doesn't have the weapons, but he's never had the weapons and they've won. He didn't have the weapons last year and they did it. The question is what are the Chargers this year? They bring in Kellen Moore from Dallas. What's that do for the offense? Does Brandon Staley continue to be gutsy and go for it on 4th down when he should probably kick the field goal? That cost him the playoffs really last year as he tried to go forward and put that final nail in instead of just running the clock and kicking the field goal. So that's going to be an interesting one. If Keenan Allen and Mike Williams can stay healthy, the Chargers have a better chance, but we've seen that that's not happened. They brought in Quentin Johnston, who I really liked in the combine and the draft, to kind of fill in that role when they're not healthy. So they'll be good. Austin Eckler is mildly upset with his contract, but it sounds like he's still going to play. So I think they'll be second. I think they're a wild card team in the AFC. The Raiders are going to be the question mark. Josh Jacobs doesn't seem to want to be with the Raiders, and the Raiders don't seem to want Josh Jacobs. They didn't give him his 5th-year option.
There you go.
And then franchise tagged him. So he could hold out all year. And then what do? I mean, Zamir White, I think, is okay. He's not great. Jimmy Garoppolo is a competent NFL quarterback. He's not a good fantasy quarterback. But you still have Devontae Adams. You brought in Jacoby Myers. You have Michael Mayer at tight end, the rookie, who I really like. You have Hunter Renfrow. The Raiders are an
enigma.
Yes, they're not a flashy, sexy team to pick, but they're a functional team where it's like, okay, they're going to be good. The problem is they play in Vegas, where Vegas wants the show. Vegas fans want the hype. Raiders fans want the hype. The owner wants the hype. I would see the Raiders possibly having a season where a lot of their home games are like away games where they get a lot of traveling fans to go there, because I think Raider fans are going to get kind of sick of it real quick if they're not doing well. We don't even know if Garoppolo is going to start. Like, there's questions about his health and I think it's his shoulder or thumb or something that he might not even start week 1. I think he does, but that's a question mark. And then you have Denver, which is the biggest question mark, and I think the whole NFL. Last year with Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, it didn't work out. They let Hackett go, kept Russell Wilson. I still think Russell Wilson is a good quarterback. Like I said, 1 year is a fluke, 2 is a pattern, 3 is a trend, or 2 is a trend, 3 is a pattern. One bad year out of Russell's 10-year career does not make him a bad quarterback. They still have weapons in Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. If Javonte Williams can be back week 1, I like Samaje P. Ryan for fantasy. So if you're in your fantasy drafts, if you're in your late rounds, Samaje P. Ryan is a really great pick in those late teen rounds because he could get the starting role. He's done really well with limited work in the past when he was with Cincinnati. So that's a great pickup for fantasy if you're looking for someone late. Samaje P. Ryan for Denver, especially if Javonte Williams doesn't come back until week 5, 6, 7. Denver's going to be in the hunt for a wild card spot. I think they're right there with the Jets and the Dolphins in that last wild card spot. Remember, we get 7 teams now, so we get 3 wild card teams. So you'll have your 4 division winners, and you get 3 wild card teams. So I think the wild card in the AFC is going to be the Dolphins, probably the Chargers, probably one of the NFC North teams, and then maybe we're talking somewhere else. We might see another team in there. We could see the Jets in there. We could see the Broncos in that hunt. So it'll be interesting. That AFC West is a tough division because you have Chiefs and the Mahomes. Like that's just they've run the show. They're going to continue to run the show. You can't bet against them. They are the standard in the NFL right now.
King of the mountain until somebody knocks you off.
Yep. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and most people aren't beating Mahomes right now.
I was going to say, Dustin, the Chargers really missed the guy behind you there, number 85. He's correct me if I'm wrong. When is he eligible for the Hall of Fame? It's got to be soon, right?
He's eligible, I think, next year.
Next year, okay.
He's first ballot, in my opinion.
He should be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
He should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I completely agree. Tight end is fairly easy-ish to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think the one thing that will hurt him is the no rings.
Yes.
He's got the numbers. He's got the All-Pros. He's got the Pro Bowl appearances, but not having a ring, I don't think it'll hurt him enough where he misses it, but I could see him only being like a 77 and 81 kind of guy where the voters will say, well, he had a lot of accolades, he had a lot of stats, but he didn't achieve, and the NFL is a team sport, and so, to be one of the greatest, you have to win as, your teams have to win, and he wasn't a Super Bowl champion, even though it really wasn't his fault that the Chargers special teams sucked in 2007.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way it goes. I mean, yeah, he's eligible, and it looks like 24. Or
24, okay.
Yeah, 24. It looks like he's eligible.
I can't believe he's only been out of the league since 19. I thought he'd been out of the league a long time.
No. It's tough because some of those guys stick around for another year, even though they don't play before they officially retire.
Sure.
So
I think by far he's got to be in the top 5 of all time tight ends. He's got to be
he's definitely
in that conversation.
And when we talk Hall of Fame, like his year, it's him, Julius Peppers, Eric Berry, then whoever's held over from the previous year. So he should be a first ballot. Tight end, like I said, tight end's fairly easy to get into, unlike wide receivers. So I think he gets in the Hall of Fame. Antonio Gates is right up there for me.
Well, speaking of the Hall of Fame, Dustin, why did it take Rondé Barber so long to get in for the Bucs on that great defense that they had in the 2000s?
It's just because the game has become such an offensive, pass-happy game, those, especially secondary players, are undervalued. If you look at a guy like Nnamdi Asomugha, who was with the Raiders, was a shutdown corner. Darrelle Revis was the same way. And the problem is when you're a shutdown corner, they don't throw the ball your way, so you don't compile the stats that you would, and people go, well, you're not worth it. Nnamdi Asomugha was with the Raiders, was a shutdown corner, was a Pro Bowler. Raiders said, we don't want to pay you. He signed with the Eagles and did really well, but because he doesn't have those stats. So they don't rack up the stats because they're so good. And that's the hard part about safeties and cornerbacks is that are really, really good in that elite level is they don't rack up the stats because teams know not to test them. So It's gone are the days of like Deion Sanders had really good stats because Deion would actually play off coverage a little bit just so he could go in and make the pick. When you start talking about like Darrelle Revis was a shutdown corner. Now Darrelle Revis hyped himself up enough to had Revis Island had this kind of marketing ploy for him. But when you're looking at Rondé Barber, like he didn't make it in. So when we talk about these things, and recency bias plays a lot into it. So we see the age of the internet since like the 2000s, people are really like, oh, I know what this guy is. I saw these guys play. I'm 40, so I saw Andre Reed play. I saw Jim Kelly play. I saw Joe Montana play. You get a lot of these guys on the internet who never saw those guys play. Go, he's just not that good, right? If you look at someone like Torrey Holt as a wide receiver, was a great receiver. Not in the Hall of Fame because a lot of not the voters, but a lot of the internet buzz is going, he's good. I mean, Zach Thomas is like 5th all-time in sacks, and he just got in this year. So it's just hard for defense because the NFL has geared itself towards being a offensive pass-happy league that those defensive guys take so long to get in.
Well, offense goes tickets, defense wins championships.
Yep.
I mean,
exactly.
he was the last one of the 4 that got in. Derek Brooks, obviously, Warren Sapp, and then John Lynch, and now Rondé Barber. He was the 4th of that clan, the Tampa 2 that Monty Kiffin and company ran. And then again, you have the whole, John Gruden took over Tony Dungy's team. And Dustin, I'm going to be 40 this year. I got to see Jim Kelly. I got to see Thurman Thomas. I got to see
Marino and
Montana, and Barry Sanders, and Montana, and Taylor, and Rice is my favorite wide receiver of all time. But I'm just saying, it's to see those guys play. It's great. Like you said, unfortunately, this generation of football fans and the new generation of football fans didn't get to see the Andre Reeds, didn't get to see the Jerry Rices, the John Taylors and company like that. The internet, right? You're right. So
all the pre-Madden players are hurting, and there's also this gatekeeping in the NFL with the Hall of Fame. So the Hall of Fame really has become the Hall of really good. Shame. But now the Hall of Fame committee has made it that these first ballot is like an extra feather in your cap to make the Hall of Fame. And so what happens is you get guys like Rondé Barber who probably could have been a first ballot because that's become the prestigious thing. They go, well, he's not a first balloter. We'll get him in next year. But then next year you get more guys. It just becomes this backlog, and then they just never get to him. So you're right. No rings. I mean, he has one ring? I mean, he got in, but Antonio Gates doesn't have many rings. Like, he might get in. Like, he's going to be, depends on who's left in his class, but there is this gatekeeping that is Antonio Gates. The question is going to be, is Antonio Gates a first ballot Hall of Famer? And I think they're going to go no. And then the second year is going to be, well, does he still get in this year, even though he should be in, but they go, well, he wasn't the first ballot, but now we have so many other people that we need to put in this year. Do we put him in? And I'm looking at pull up the 25 class. The 25 class, you got Luke Kuechly, and that's it. So he'll get in 25. Marshawn Lynch, Eli Manning's there in the 25 class. Joe Staley's there as a tackle. So I think he gets in at 25 for sure. But he probably won't get in because they probably won't consider him a first ballot because that has become the new Hall of Fame. The new Hall of Fame is being a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's the new benchmark for Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame has really become Hall of Good, and they're trying to gatekeep it with this first ballot or second ballot, and that's kind of how they do the rankings.
You gotta be better than that to get in the Hall of Fame,
I mean, but there's guys. I don't say there's guys in the Hall of Fame that don't deserve it, but we're going to start seeing that. Does Eli Manning deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? That's going to be the question.
Well,
and everyone goes, well,
titles.
2 Super Bowls, a bunch of Pro Bowls, probably does. Okay, cool. Eli's in 25. Does Phillip Rivers belong in the Hall of Fame? No Super Bowls. No, but you'll go stats. He's better than Eli Manning. So you go, well, if Eli's in at as the 23rd, most passing yards, and Rivers is at 20, maybe he should get in. Then you go, okay, then does Roethlisberger get in? I say yes. 2 Super Bowls, plenty of Pro Bowls. So then that's the dividing line. So then they probably let Phillip Rivers in eventually, and then you go, well, he had to wait 5 ballots where Eli had to wait 2. Okay, cool. And that's going to be their guide mark. And you're going to see that, well, is this many ballots before you got in? That's going to be the start of the dividing mark. It's going to be a tough call. Yeah, Phillip Rivers is a tough call. I say probably not. I think Eli is a tough call, and I think he probably gets in. I think Ben Roethlisberger gets in.
Yes.
But that's the Hall of Fame now. It's this keep people out based on how many ballots, and that becomes their new ranking system for them.
Right.
Well, the last division we haven't talked about is the AFC North, and that's
Vikings,
Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Cincinnati,
Baltimore.
In Baltimore. So obviously it's been the Bengals. Obviously they've been the team the last few years. Tell me why we should believe in Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, why that's not a mess. And then, you have Pittsburgh, and who's their quarterback? Who's the kid from
Kenny Pickett?
Kenny Pickett. So, and then Baltimore got better during the offseason. I think that's the team that everyone is predicted to win the North this year is the Ravens. What's your thoughts, Dustin?
Cincinnati.
Yeah, I still think it's Cincinnati's division. And before we get on that, I will say a website I really like for Hall of Fame is futurefootballlegends.com. You can look year by year, and it kind of gives you a breakdown. They have this whole legend score. I really like that website when I'm talking to Hall of Famers, just like who they tell you who is eligible when. You can kind of see where they rank. So that's a website I like. So it's futurefootballlegends.com.
Good to know.
AFC North, it's the Bengals division. Joe Burrows is just getting better. You still have Jamar Chase. You still have T. Higgins. You have Tyler Boyd. You have Joe Mixon. Baltimore got better. I really loved the Odell Beckham signing. I think he's going to be a good wide receiver for them. You have a new offensive coordinator. You have Lamar healthy, and you have Lamar that wants to play.
Excited.
I'm convinced that Lamar was healthy last year at the end of the year, but didn't want to play for him, and because he didn't have a contract, so he didn't play. He'll say he was healthy, but I think deep down he was really healthy and just said, no, I'm not playing without a contract. Mark Andrews is still a premier tight end. Rashad Bateman's a good pass catcher for them. J.K. Dobbins is a good receiver who can catch balls. They're going to be a wild card team. Cleveland's interesting. It depends on what you believe in Deshaun Watson. Now, no one likes Deshaun Watson, obviously, as a person. Is he a good quarterback still? I still think he could be a competent quarterback. I don't think he's as good as he once was. I think those years definitely took some toll on him, both mentally and physically. They have a decent team. Nick Chubb is a great rusher. I worry about the touches that Nick Chubb has had. He had over 320 attempts last year between carries and catches. They don't have a whole lot behind them. Amari Cooper's good. They traded for Elijah Moore. They could compete for a wild card team. And then you have Pittsburgh. It comes down to Kenny Pickett. I think Pickett's just okay. I think probably needs another year to develop. I like Deontay Johnson. I worry about George Pickens and his mental state. He had some character issues coming out of college. So if they have another bad year and he doesn't have a great season, does he start getting the Antonio Brown disgruntledness? I like Najee Harris as a running back. It's a really tough division there, but I do think it's Cincinnati and Baltimore are the cream of the crop. But I do think that Cleveland and Pittsburgh can play spoiler for a lot of people in the AFC. The AFC is just stacked across the board. Like you're talking every division, there's 2-3 teams that could be contenders, right? AFC East, you got Bills, Dolphins, Jets. AFC South, you have Jaguars, Colts, Tennessee, right? Like even Houston. AFC West, you have Denver, Kansas City, and LA. And in the North, you have Baltimore, Cincinnati, and then Pittsburgh and Cleveland could be good. So it's going to be really competitive. Someone's going to be bad. Like there's just going to be a bad team in the AFC that's going to get 5-6 wins. My guess would probably be Cleveland out of the whole AFC that I think it's going to be. Maybe Houston is a little bit down there. I think this division is definitely Cincinnati's to win, but they have to make it work on the field. Cincinnati has a window right now to win Super Bowls. Obviously, we're talking AFC Super Bowl champs. We're talking Kansas City. Buffalo's in the small window, and Kansas City has a big window. Now they have to pay T. Higgins, and I think they'll get that done. If they don't want to get that done, they can obviously get rid of T. Higgins and move on and keep Tyler Boyd and do some like they could trade T. Higgins and get 2 firsts and a second like Kansas City got for Tyreek Hill, but I don't think they do. I think they want to stay together and make a run. If they sign T. Higgins long term, we could see Cincinnati be cream of the crop in the AFC, especially in their division for the next 5 years.
Well, then they seem to be a thorn in the side of Kansas City. They seem to be that thorn that won't go away. Won't go away. I agree with you, and I think the power has shifted. I think it was the NFC, and it's shifted now to the AFC, where I think the AFC is a stronger conference. There's so many good teams, like you said, Dustin, across the board. The Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and then you never know the Chargers. You never know those surprise teams, the Jets, the Dolphins. You never know any of those teams out there too that can sneak up and steal a division away. The Colts, the Jaguars. So it's harder to predict the AFC. Hopefully, I'm not pissing anybody off at the end that are NFC fans, but it's harder to predict the AFC moving forward because I think the AFC is the stronger conference of the two. Obviously, they have the Super Bowl championship coming back. Going into this year, Kansas City will be defending their title, but it'll be one of those things where, it's just a stronger conference.
And it's a razor's edge they're all on. One injury to a starter really changes everything, and even on a defense, right? So if you lose, right, the Bills lost Von Miller. That really changed the Bills' season last year. Had Von Miller not get injured, I think the Bills make the Super Bowl. One injury in a secondary, or even Bills dealt with a ton of injuries in the secondaries. That really hurt them. One injury on your offensive line tanks your season. You can be a great team, and you lose an offensive lineman, and all of a sudden your season is just you go from a 13-win team to a 10-win team, and you still make the playoffs, but you can't make that long push. So that's something to watch for if you're a fan, if you're playing fantasy, and you see an injury to an offensive lineman or something, maybe you trade away some of those aspects. If Joe Burrow dealt with a lot of sacks. If Cincinnati loses an offensive lineman early in the season, maybe you see if you can get a big return for Joe Burrow and get, you can trade Joe Burrow and get a Justin Herbert and, straight up or something like that. And you just go, hey, they got an offensive line issue. That's what makes the difference in the AFC is one minor injury. Whereas the NFC, if you're picking NFC Super Bowl contenders, it's Eagles, Cowboys, Niners are really the only three that people really have confidence in to be Super Bowl contenders. They can get by. Yeah, maybe Green Bay. Right, you can maybe pick one of those North teams, but I think those are kind of a crapshoot. But if the Cowboys lose an offensive lineman, it doesn't hurt them as much as the Bills lose an offensive lineman, right? Because the Cowboys don't have as much competition pushing them from behind. They can go and still make a deep run, right? We saw it with San Francisco. They lose Brock Purdy, lose Jimmy Garoppolo, right? They lose Trey Lance, lose Jimmy Garoppolo, go to Brock Purdy. They have a great run. All of a sudden, they lose Brock Purdy, then they're sunk. Most teams can't get through three quarterbacks and still be good. Most teams can't get through multiple offensive linemen and still be good, especially in the NFC, because one game is going to make the difference in the AFC, where it's probably going to be a 2-game difference in the NFC.
No, I agree. I agree with that. I think, like you said, I think they're one injury away. If you lose an offensive lineman, that's bad. That's bad all the way across the board. They're there again. You could have Montana, Kelly, Brady. If you have a bad offensive line, you can forget about winning games. I think Tom, with his last year with the Bucs, found that out. Yeah. So.
No, I agree. It's gonna be. I'm really excited for football season because that's what I love about football. I have railed against NFL Red Zone for the longest time because I love watching football. I love watching those defensive battles. I want to see what these guys look like on defense. I want to see what, Bradley Chubb does on defense. I want to see what Jalen Ramsey does for the Dolphins in the secondary. I want to see those plays because that matters more than what happens between the 20s on the either side in the middle of the field is just as important as what happens in the red zone. And I think fantasy has skewed people towards, it's a scoring play I need to watch. It's no, watch all these other things. Those things matter, right? It's how does a running back do when he gets the 1st and 10 on the 25, right? And he's got to go to the field. Does he get big runs or is he just plodding along, right? Yeah, it's great that he scored the touchdown. Cool. What do you do the rest of the plays? It's great that a guy can run in from the 5-yard line and runs a touchdown and, cool, he scored a touchdown. Cool. But he averaged 1 yard per carry every other play, or only got 2 carries, or only played in the red zone. Those things matter. I love football, and I love the strategy of it, the sportsmanship of it, that back and forth, and that tension that we see with football, right? And knowing that a matter of inches, a tip ball, an inch between converting the first down or not matters. Those things are important, and everybody plays a role, which is why I love the game and why I think fantasy is great, but fantasy does take a little bit out of that. And that's why we see things like IDP in fantasy, which is individual defensive players, really become popular and starting to grow a little bit because people want to play with those guys and know more about the game.
No, I too have the love of the game. I've never played the game in my life, but I do have a love of the game. I'm a big college guy too. I'm college football. Saturday morning, get up, watch College Game Day. I mean, to start your Saturday off and stuff like that. So I'm waiting. What are we, a month away from the preseason getting started in a few weeks, and
Even sooner than that.
Nice to get everything rolling here soon.
We're 50 days away from the NFL season kicking off.
There you go. That's beautiful.
Okay.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
I was talking about the AFC North, and who's always provided me tremendous value is Justin Tucker.
Oh yeah, if you play the kicker league, like Justin Tucker is beyond good. But I'm a proponent. If you have to play kickers, you draft them in the end of your draft. So the last 3 rounds. So maybe I take him in the round 17 instead of 19. But he's a great value. He can kick the leg forever. The problem with kickers is that once they're done, they're done. Like Justin Tucker, I don't think Justin Tucker's going to fall off. But we saw it with guys like Mason Crosby for Green Bay. He was good, and all of a sudden he was just bad. And they can rotate through. I mean, I like McPherson for Cincinnati. I like Tyler Bass for Buffalo. There's some really good kickers, especially in the AFC as well. So if you play kicker leagues, that's where it is. There's a big push in fantasy to get rid of kickers, but I still think it's a strategic point.
I like playing a PPR league with 1 quarterback, 2 receivers, 2 running backs, tight end, flex, kicker, and defense.
Dustin, who do you think will be the top defense, or who's the top defenses that are getting picked in fantasy so far?
It's tough. I mean, if I'm picking a defense, I want someone in probably the NFC South. So if I can take a Carolina defense, that's a good sleeper because they're just not going to pay tough competitions. I don't do a ton of defense research. I think the Dolphins have gotten much better on defense. I'm much more of a streamer, so I look at my defense in 3-week blocks. So if I'm drafting, I go, who's got the best 3-week matchup the first 3 weeks, and then go from there. If I can get 3 weeks out of a defense, that's how I look at it. So the problem with defense is they rotate every year. So the top defense last year won't be the top defense this year, right? The Eagles are probably still up there. The Niners are probably still up there, but you never know. Patriots 2-3 years ago were this amazing defense all of a sudden, and people, just picked them because they're like, sure, why not? So defense for me, that's why I go, let me draft a team and then gauge after 3 weeks who's good and who's got some matchups. Because the first 3 weeks, we really have no clue what's happening. I mean, we can take our best guesses at it, but 3 weeks in, we kind of have a better understanding of what offenses are good, what defenses are good, and vice versa. So,
and that's why I prefer to wait until after the preseason to do my draft.
Yes, I like to draft as late as possible. I think that weekend of that last preseason game is a good weekend to draft for most drafts because I think you get the most information. We're in a big tournament, the Scott Fish Bowl right now. It's a big 3,000 person tournament. We drafted the past weeks, and so people drafted the kicker that just got cut, Badgley. So it's like all of a sudden they have a kicker that now they have to drop and pick up a different one. So it's like, oh man, and then Isaiah Pacheco goes on the pup, and you're like, oh no, I lost my running back. So the later you can draft, the better because the more information you have.
Yeah, I like the cut day, the last Tuesday before the regular season.
Yeah,
that's my favorite day to do my fantasy draft. Because, like you said, then you have all the information. You know who's made the 53. You know who's going to be signed. And then if you want to lay in it, maybe you'll take a Dalvin Cook, who if he remains unsigned, or Saquon Barkley, he's going to hold out, and hopefully they'll get a deal done by week 4, and I'm gonna hold on to him for some value.
I mean, a lot of people are drafting, Zeke and Leonard Fournette right now, and they're like, oh, he's going to sign. Well, what if he doesn't? Like, there's a chance he just doesn't sign. Like, people are drafting Kareem Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt's done. I don't think Kareem Hunt gets a deal. Like, he could just be done, and you're wasted a draft pick on them. I'm not a big proponent of drafting guys who aren't on teams right now.
I would stay away from Kareem Hunt, Zeke Elliott, and who's the other one you mentioned now? Fournette, definitely. The only one that I might consider drafting is Zeke, but I need to have more rumors, more rumblings about him actually sitting down and meeting with a team or multiple teams. And somebody in his camp came out and said, hey, we're getting close to a deal. We'll know more this weekend. Then I might think about it. But without having any kind of movement from any camp, I can't pull a trigger on a draft like that.
Yeah, and it's the problem because there's a pecking order, right? So Dalvin Cook is the guy. So unless the team really falls in love with Zeke, which at this point Zeke, Fournette, Cook are all kind of equal, and you kind of go, well, Cook's the best one. So until Cook signs, Zeke and Fournette won't sign. So once Cook signs, then we'll see maybe Zeke sign, and then we'll see Fournette sign, and then maybe Hunt sign. So there's just going to be that pecking order because if you're a team, why would you sign Zeke when you have a chance to sign Dalvin Cook, who's clearly better? Like Dalvin Cook got cut because of his contract, not because of his play. I mean, Zeke. Right. The Cowboys ate a ton of dead cap to cut Zeke because they just didn't like his play or his style. Like they financially wasn't the smartest decision, but that's what they did. So once Dalvin Cook signs, then we'll see. I imagine we'll probably see Dalvin Cook sign probably in the next couple weeks. You know, but start of training camps. Then we'll see a couple days later we'll see Zeke sign, and then a couple days later we'll see Fournette sign. Like I said, I don't think Hunt gets a contract. If he does, he gets cut pretty quick. Right, and then but injuries change things, right? If someone goes down, then someone brings someone in. So. Running backs, everyone railed against the running back contracts. It's supply and demand. There's just not a lot of room for them, and there's just not a lot of value left in them because you can not pay a guy a big contract. You don't have to pay a Barkley a big contract to get similar production off someone cheaper. So it's a shame, but that's just the system we're in.
Mm-hmm. You get two guys for the same production, same price as a Barkley, and get comparable production. So. Yeah. It's a market economy, and you're not in the market nor the economy.
That's right.
Well, also, too, the league has gone more to a passing league than a running league. The running back position isn't what it once was. With the Emmitt Smith, Thurman Thomas, Barry Sanders era, that there's few and far between in running backs today. I mean, it's not a value position anymore like it used to be.
Yeah.
And the value over longevity.
Correct.
So you're looking at guys like Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette, Zeke Elliott, Dalvin Cook, guys who have been hurt, guys who are pushing 30 or over 30, guys that are looking at a second or third contract. They just, like I said, you can get two younger guys that can do the same things. You get one guy so let's say we're replacing Barkley. So we can get one guy we can give the ball on third down. We get another guy for first and second. And we can replace what Barkley does for less or equal money. Yep. We don't have to pay him to lose him we don't have to give him a 4 or 5 year deal to only be able to get 2 more years out of him.
And look at the success, right? Last year, Eagles and Chiefs make the Super Bowl. None of them had big contract running backs. Year before that, it's Tampa Bay and the Chiefs. Tampa Bay had Fournette on a cheap contract. Year before that, the Rams won with not a big contract. Like, we haven't seen teams with big contract running backs have lasting success and make Super Bowl appearances. So that the owners are going, why pay? There's no proven reason to pay and have success. So
a guy, a slot guy can fill that, can become he just stands up and he's already 3 yards down the field.
Yep.
You come turn around out of his break and hit him, and he falls forward for 5 yards.
Yeah.
That's just as good as a handoff with just about the same amount of risk.
Yep. And honestly, like, linemen have gotten bigger, faster, stronger. So we've seen, when Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith played, the linemen were either big and fat and slow, or they were fast and not very strong or speedy. Now you've got guys, you've got Micah Parsons, who's this big, broody guy off the edge who has just as fast as your running back and and stronger and can get in that hole faster. It used to be that Barry Sanders could hit the hole without contact. I'd love to go back and look at, where their first contact was, because I think back in the day it was a lot farther up the field than it was now. You're getting guys in the backfield left and right, which is just diminishing what running backs can do. Running backs used to be when you were young, if you were fast and could catch, you were a receiver. If you were fast and couldn't catch, you were a running back. Now it's if you're fast and can't catch, you're probably a defensive lineman or a linebacker, because that's going to be better for you. So
or a corner.
Yeah. And that's where everybody's saying that, these top players aren't going to play running back anymore. They might not, That's not going to help the running back contracts anymore. Like if we just stop seeing, if Bijan Robinson never played running back and was a defensive lineman or linebacker, does that change the value for? No, it makes the value even worse for them. So,
and you think what? The one thing that I will say that could change it is the RPO, the run pass option that's really popular in college. If you can see success like the Eagles had with that, where you can see a running back, you may see a resurgence of the running back, a back that's got good vision out of the backfield that can take a play and make an 8-yard gain out of it consistently. That's what's going to change. That's what's going to give the running back position more value, is having it be higher value. Think about the slant in the slot, right? If you beat the linebacker and you're behind the linebacker in front of the safety, the turnout field, that's 10 to 15 yards. It's 5, 10, 15 yards. And those are zone beaters, right? And the running back, like you were saying about linemen being bigger, faster, stronger, Aiden Hutchinson's first play as a Lion in a regular season game, he's in the backfield. First snap. He's meeting the running back and quarterback at the point, man.
Yeah.
He's beating the offensive lineman off the snap, beating the running back to the quarterback and taking him down for a 5 or 6 yard loss.
Yep.
So, the direct handoff, or not but the initial handoff to the running back 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage just isn't there. Like you were saying in the 90s, where your first contact was 3 or 4 yards downfield, because linemen were so much bigger. Offensive linemen were huge, defensive linemen were huge, and so then it was the unstoppable force versus the immovable object, and you had these two clashes, and so you have and so then that 7-yard handoff was viable because the offensive and defensive line weren't moving at the point of attack 2 or 3 yards either way.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, and the game has evolved. Quarterbacks have gotten faster. Defensives have changed. They don't have 4 guys with their hands down in the dirt, but offensive line hasn't evolved. You still have these big guys who are generally slower. They still have to play with their hand down. We haven't evolved the way the offensive lines can form up, can the formations, and they can't use their speed. So you could have, if you turned Aiden Hutchinson into an offensive lineman, he's not as talented because he can't, when you're down in the 3-point stance, you can't get up fast enough to block. But he doesn't have to put his hand down on the defensive line. He can just stand there and be in a start and just take off. Like, it's completely different. The game hasn't evolved in the offensive line to match what's happened in the evolution of the athletes on the defensive side of the ball. And I don't know if it ever will.
That does drive me mad, where you can't have too many men in the backfield or 2 men moving at the snap. Like, that is just a delay of life, and
Yep.
Those are when somebody asks me what rule I would change, the first one would be the formation penalties on offense. I would take those right out of the rule book, throw them away. Why can the defense
can move 6 guys at one time?
Defense could line up 10 guys in a line and put an 11th guy, on the end of the goal line if they wanted to.
Yep.
For whatever off the wall reason. If a defensive coach wanted to put 9 guys in the box, there's nothing says he can't. He could have all 11 guys spread across the entire, other than it's just bad tactics. If the defensive coach thought that the best option was to put 11 guys across the formation in a line and bull rush the offense, there's nothing that says they can't, and they can knock down all 3 receivers as long as it's within the first 5 yards. So the defensive rules, but if the offense spread out all 11 guys across the formation or 10 guys across the formation and have the quarterback behind center, that's too many men on the line of scrimmage.
Yep. Yeah, it's the game needs to evolve a little bit more in terms of formations and position descriptions, and I don't know if it'll ever get there. I think we're kind of stuck where we are, but I think running backs just need to understand that that's their value, and Sorry, you make 10 million instead of 12. Like, I guess I'm not super upset by that. So,
Yeah.
Dustin, if you need to go, bud, you can go right ahead,
Yep.
man. We had a pleasure having you on, and
Hey,
you're
it's been
welcome
great,
back
guys.
anytime, man. I'll tweet you on. I'll get you on Twitter, man. Thank you for coming on.
Hey,
talking
thank you
with us.
guys so much. You guys have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
All right, bye.
Well, that was cool, guys. And actually, I don't have a green screen, by the way. How did I do this magic? I don't have a green screen behind me. So maybe I don't.
I saw you weren't in your usual spot.
No, I will be. This will be where I'll be in a couple weeks. Next week will be the last show in Pinellas Park, and then it'll be here. So I will be here probably in this spot that I'm in right now. So she set this up for me to kind of be down here. So I'm going to take advantage of the desk and stuff like that. So
there you go.
So, but Lou, I'll check on your cards. You know, maybe I got your address incorrect. I don't know.
Maybe.
I think I deleted all of those. Hang on a second. I don't know if I think I deleted. Yeah, I deleted all the address. Okay. I'll check in my mail, Lou, and see if it came back to me.
Okay.
But yeah, don't take it offensively. I did send everyone cards.
Which I promptly forgot on the stage.
Surprised that Alex didn't say anything. I haven't. He hasn't messaged me.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a couple of weeks. I don't know.
Surprised
Ever
that
since
he hasn't said anything to me yet.
after the brouhaha we had, he hasn't talked to me much. So.
Yeah.
I mean, if he wants to be.
According to what he's been telling me, guys, is he's been working and moving and all that stuff. So, you know, he's staying busy. That's on him. So,
bygones are bygones, and there's water under the bridge for me. It's whatever. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened, and anyway.
There's nothing we can't go back and
no.
What did you guys think, man? We definitely got to have those two back on again.
Absolutely, I was kind of I was kind of bummed that Mike took off. That was
I don't know. I was waiting for him, Bud, to come back, and if you saw me checking my phone, maybe he would message me on LinkedIn. I don't know if I know he for a long time, for a while, couldn't come on. He's been busy and stuff like that, but I think every day he posts something about fantasy. So he's always consistently on LinkedIn, and I'll get him back on. I'll get him back on here where he can be on here.
The other guy was really good too. The guy from Twitter, he was really good too. I enjoyed talking to him too.
He just messaged me, Bud, earlier this week and said, "Hey, I'm available." I'm like, "Okay, cool." I mean, and lo and behold, he's fantasy football. I'm like, "Great! I got two people that do fantasy football. I mean, how beautiful is that?" I'm like, "Great!"
It was really fun.
So, I mean, it was just a perfect time. I'm sorry for everyone out there who likes to have us talk about every sport. But I did say that we were going to strictly talk about the fantasy football, the NFL, and stuff like that. So it is what it is. I know Wimbledon just finished up. The Open Championship first round was today. And if you want to watch golf, ladies and gentlemen, you can probably wake up at 4 a.m. and watch the Open Championship if you want to. I don't do that. I'm a golf fan. I don't even do that. My uncle used to do it.
Only the majors.
So he does. I don't even know who's leading the golf tournament. I haven't even been paying attention. Somebody can look that up real quick and who's the leader of the Open Championship so far? Because I don't know
right now.
Okay.
If I can get this name right, let's see here. His name is Crucio Lamperchette. I think is how you say it.
Okay. Is he an amateur, Lou, or is he a professional?
He is an amateur.
Ah, so I think they said on radio that he'll be in like he'll be out of the by the second round. He'll be gone, but I don't know. Amateur players have played pretty well this year.
Yeah,
You can play.
One of them did well in the U.S. Open. There's been a lot of
high actually for
players.
the
So
there's that one guy that played that like finished 15th overall, wasn't there? He's an amateur. He had been a pro amateur for like 10 years or something like that.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah, I mean, well, look at Michael Block, the teaching pro. He did so well. He did well. There's been a lot of amateur. There's been more successful amateur players this year than I've seen ever. We had a couple more minutes. Where's NASCAR?
They are in Pocono. But we had silly season news.
Pocono.
Go ahead.
Justin Haley is going to Rick Ware Racing next year. He's going. They don't know. He's going to be taking over the 51 car. It's unclear whether he's going to actually drive the 51 or not, or if that car is going to be rebadged under a different number. Mm-hmm. It's a bit of out of the blue because he was driving for Colin Racing and has been, and he won a race a few years ago. He ran a rain shortened the 2019 spring or summer Daytona, the 2019. I think it was 2019. So I was living here. It must have been 2019 because the 2020. Because it was pre-pandemic, so it must have been 2019. Won the 2019 summer Daytona race, the July Daytona race. So it kind of came out of the blue that he's going to be heading to Rick Ware Racing next season. We don't know who's going to be getting that ride, but my speculation, if I delve into the realm of speculation. I'm speculating that they're opening that seat up at Colleague for Sean Van Bergen, and he won the darkness shortened race at Chicago earlier this summer, the July 4th weekend race in Chicago. So that's my speculation, is that Van Bergen is going to be getting the what's the 31 at Colleague next year. That because he's going to be racing again for Trackhouse, which I could see Trackhouse and Colleague forming an alliance, because that's who Van Bergen won that race for. He's going to be coming back to run Watkins Glen in a couple of weeks here, middle of August.
Cool.
That's my NASCAR news and notes for the week.
I was just going to say the Tampa Bay Rays are no longer in first place in the AL East. They lost to the Orioles. They are now one game back of Baltimore in the division. They had that lead evaporate. So that's interesting. I have the game. I can't watch. I can't see the TV screen over there, but I can hear. I had the TV turned down low to hear it, and I just checked my phone, and they lost 4-3 and 10. So it's an extra innings to the.
I think that kind of like we were talking about the unpublished show. Kind of mentioned that it's a little too early to crown Tampa Bay Kings of the West.
Oh, that's right. That was one of the arguments on that show, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. That was kind of the one that was the one that broke the straw's back. Yeah. And then and not to bring up old wounds and drag salt through them, but And then that's where my head was at during that whole conversation. Was this is the middle of June. We hadn't even made it to the All-Star break yet, and we're talking about we still have 4 months of baseball left to play, well over 100 games to play, and he's going on about how they're the best team in the East, how they're better than the Yankees, and it's like, dude, it's so early. There's so much baseball to play. Let's take a beat, take a breath, and once they've won something, then you can say they're the best. But and going on about the model, like they haven't won anything. If you're gonna say that they have the best model, it's gonna be Houston. I mean, all trash cans aside, and disregarding trash cans, they still performed. They won a title post trash can.
They have.
And
yeah,
the Rangers are the best in the West. I mean, the Dodgers are the best in the NL West. The Dodgers have a title. The Braves have a title. I mean, no, you can't go out there and start crowning teams champions in June. I mean, last year at this time we were talking about the Mets leading the NL East. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think it was this show at that time. It would have been this show or next week's show, but about a year ago now, because I think it was either the first weekend of August or the last weekend of July. I said it may have been the last weekend in August actually, but I don't remember. I've slept since then, so forgive me. But I said the Mets were going to collapse. And Mets are headed for September collapse. And what did they do? They collapsed. So I mean,
just like in 2007.
Don't call me Nostradamus, but I get one right every now and again.
Yeah.
And the Rays have only won 3 games in the month of July.
Oh,
So
wow.
if anything, you want to have a slump, it's the good time to do it now, because you have August and September to figure it out before the playoffs. So
you get healthy and get right.
In September, you can forget about going to the postseason because you'd be out of it. Yeah.
Well, you really don't want to be slumping in the last 2 weeks of the year. The best time to slump, the best time to have a skid, have a 3 or 4 game losing streak. Now, the thing about it is can you recover from it?
Correct.
Because let's say right now it's July 20th, and they've gone and they've only won 3 games in July. Let's say they bounce back tomorrow, and I don't know if it would be. So did they lose? So I guess this would be the get out of town game with the Orioles. So I don't know who they would be playing tomorrow night, but let's say it's Boston, just for want of a argument. Let's say they're playing Boston tomorrow. Not that they are, but just for hypothetical sake. Let's say they lose.
They got Baltimore for 4.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
So this is okay. So they have a whole weekend set. So let's say, and let's say they beat Baltimore tomorrow, right? Friday night, beat Baltimore. Then they lose 4 more games. The thing about it is it's going to be stopping the bleeding and keeping the bleeding stopped.
Correct.
Because if they lose, let's say you can't win 1 to lose 3. That's going to be the biggest challenge. Is can they keep it? Can they stop skids and sustain and continue? Win 3, lose 1, win 3, lose 2, or are they going to go on a sustained streak of 3-game losing streak, where they they lose on Friday, they win on Friday night, but they lose Saturday and Sunday and Monday, then they're off Tuesday, they win Wednesday, or they play Tuesday, off Wednesday, play an afternoon game on Thursday, play an evening game on Friday. Win Friday, lose Saturday and Sunday. Win Monday, win Tuesday, lose the rest of the week. That's going to be the real kicker. Is can they sustain winning streaks, or stop losing streaks? Because you can get back to equilibrium, right? and stop a skid and start winning games. You win one here, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, win 4, lose 2, win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 1. You can maintain you can grow a lead and maintain a lead, and then win 4 or 5 and lose 1, lose 2, lose 1, win 1, win 1, lose 1. That's really going to be the question for the Rays going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Very true. Well, gentlemen, we have reached the end of the show. Lou, do you want to go ahead and plug your show before we get out of here?
Sure. Check out the Trash Can Show on Saturday. Oh, no.
Hey, I thought you were a Yankees fan.
He renamed it.
The Indiana Sports Show. Saturday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 to 5 in Gerald's time zone, in all points Central. Number to call is 1-800-GOT-TRASH. You see those guys coming in now? 512-543-4662. We'll be covering the Women's World Cup, which is going on tomorrow. We'll update on that first game, which should be fairly easy. We'll also cover the British Open. I mean the Open tournament. Sorry.
You can call it either one.
Okay, either or. We'll also recap NBA Summer League, or as I like to call it, NBA Summer School, which I have. Recap the men's finals of the Wimbledon, because by the time I did the show, it wasn't done yet. We had the women's final, but the men's final was on Sunday, so I couldn't do it. So barely than never. We'll also look at what's going on in NFL training camp. What's wrong with the Yankees and MLB? And there's a lot going on. UFC and WWE. I'll try to put in some NHL and NBA movies that have been going on, because there's been some more going on as of late. So I'll be on all that. All this and more. Of course, we got the feel good story of the week. We got the ridiculous side of the week. Oh boy, we got some good ones this week. Oh, we got. Of course, and your thoughts and comments are always welcome. So just remember the same time, 4 to 6 p.m. on Saturday. And hope and if you can't join us, don't forget we're also on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and dial in the Enhanced Sports Show, exactly as it says, or else you don't get squat. So check that out if you can't make it to the show. That note.
Remember, 1 bang is a fastball, 2 bangs is a curve.
Well, with that, guys, I want to thank Dustin and Mikey for coming on and talking fantasy football with us. Next week, we'll be joined by an 18-year-old Epson Tour women's golfer that actually lives in Tampa. And, I've been told that I get to play golf with her. So I'll let you know how that goes. But anyway, we'll see Nicole next week.
She might beat you, Brad.
Probably will. I'm sure if she doesn't, then we have some issues. But anyway, we'll be back next week, guys. It will be my last show in Pinellas Park. I will be moving to Clearwater, where I am this evening. I actually think now that I've kind of sat here for a couple hours, I think I kind of like this. I kind of like being down here, and I'm not at a dining room table or anything like that. So,
like in the basement.
No, I'm actually sitting in what is her dining room area, and back there is her living room. So, yeah. So, but this will be where I'll be. I want to thank everyone that tuned in. I know there's been someone watching on YouTube and Facebook this entire show. So thanks to everyone that joined in. Before we go, thank to our men and women of our armed services, our first responders. Thank you for doing what you do. We wouldn't be here without you. If you guys missed it, I think I posted the very first video Walker report to my Facebook page as a memory. Go check that out. There's been a lot that's changed over the years since I've done that first show. Yeah. But anyway, guys, we'll be back next week. We'll have a guest on. And everyone, please stay safe out there. And we are part of 4 Good Network, Street Great sponsors. Thank you forever. Till then, guys, I'm the sports star, Bradley Walker. Peace.
Good night, folks. Got print, send it.